MillMade Serenade. Let's hear about life in the days of the mills, as it was in Willimantic and throughout New England, from the hills to the mills. Old Slim Dickens raised up chickens up upon the mountain top. The eggs fell off, was slim pickings. We don't know why the chickens stopped, but the chickens stopped their giving him their eggs both white and brown. Hey Henrietta, how about some more eggs? Don't you talk back to me. Don't you talk up to me. Slim still had to make a living, so he went down to the town. Came down from the hills to work in the mills. Left rural scenery to work on machinery, making things like thread on spools, shoes and watches and hand tools. Traded country living for toil in town when the mill wheels turned our life around. Yester Davis grew tobacco in Connecticut's backwoods, filled many a pipe by cracky back when they thought smoking was good. But along came World War I and the men went off to fight. When she found her business done, she needed a new job, all right. Gus Cannon had all he needed, wood for fire to keep the shack heated, eating nuts and fish from the creek, heard of a factory that paid each week, had to go to bed at dark each night. I liked the idea of the electric light. He was turned off to country living after he turned on his first electric light. Ooh, that's better. Trade his banjo for a radio, decided into town he'd go. Ichabod Lee raised up critters to help his family survive. Wool from sheep was used for sweaters. He got honey from a beehive, milk from goats, beef from cows, sausage from sows, mules pulled plows. He got eggs from ducks and from chickens. Turkeys and rabbits could make a stew. But when the modern city beckoned, he said toodaloo to his zoo. He came down from the hills to work in the mills. Left rural scenery to work on machinery, making things like thread on spools, shoes and watches and hand tools. Traded country living for toil in town when the mill wheels turned our life around. Everybody works at American Thread. Down in Willimantic, where we all reside, there's a factory that has garnered great renown. It's a granite structure by the riverside. Our family works there, so does the whole town. My father works at American Thread. My mother works at American Thread. My brother works there too, and my sister's on the crew. The whole family works at American Thread. American Thread, American Thread. I reckon I will work there till I'm dead. From grandfather on down, in fact the whole darn town, everybody works at American Thread. My auntie works the shuttle forth and back. My uncle piles the spools on the rack. My grandma spins Angora, and grandpa sweeps the flora. Everybody works at American Thread. American Thread, American Thread. I reckon I will work there till I'm dead. From grandfather on down, in fact the whole darn town, everybody works at American Thread. Skinny Minnie works at American Thread. Big Bone Benny works at American Thread. And Matilda, who's now Matt, and the neighbor's tabby cat. Everybody works at American Thread. American Thread, American Thread. I reckon I will work there till I'm dead and gone. From grandfather on down, in fact the whole darn town. Everybody works at American Thread. I said you work there too. There's no sense denying it, 'cause it's true. Each Jane and John Doe, in fact everyone I know. The whole family works at American Thread. American Thread, American Thread. I reckon I will work there till I'm dead. From grandfather on down, in fact the whole darn town. Everybody works at American Thread. And that's not all. My girlfriend works at American Thread. If she says yes, we will soon be wed. And in a year or 3, we will have a wee baby. And he'll grow up to work at American Thread. American Thread, American Thread. I reckon I will work there till I'm dead. From grandfather on down, in fact the whole darn town. Everybody works at American Thread. W.E. Barrows, Mill Manager Man. W.E. Barrows was a manager at the mill. Some called him a progressive businessman. He lived in a mansion on the hill, looking down on the worker clan. To improve quality of life, he was driven, design nice houses for workers to live in, not in a city block, but curvy lanes instead, with landscaping inspired by Frederick Law Olmsted. You know, with picket fences and fancy pants trees and flowers like pansies. Educated workers were not the norm. Barrows made programs for reform. His style of management was paternalistic, but reasons for improvements were not altruistic. Profitability and loyalty were his ulterior goal. He wanted the most work for his payroll. Some say too much controlling can be bad. But you know how it is. Sometimes parents are like that, yeah. Barrows was the daddy of the mill, and what he said, goed. And if you didn't like it, you could hit the road. Get out of here. W.E. Barrows, the daddy of the mill. W.E. Barrows, daddy of them all. He was the man with good manage. He was the man with the planage. Wanted to make the mill the best. Put the workers to the test. At the thread mill, he's the head. He makes bread when the mill makes thread. If he can't do it, no one can. W.E. Barrows, the manager man. W.E. Barrows, the daddy of them all. W.E. Barrows, the daddy of the mills. What a man. What a manager. He saw workers as children to lead. Better people make better workers, he decreed. He was much concerned with literacy and built a school and a library. He encouraged workers to have at least 3 books. The Bible, work well and let whatever you do. Shakespeare, my library was dukedom large enough. And a bank book. Ha, could they save much with the money they got? I think not. The mill provided lessons in music and art. Also lectures, plays, and concerts. Conditions were improved with uniforms and a store, coffee breaks and improved decor, meals and painted walls for ambiance, stained glass windows and potted plants. These were just some of the amenities. The windows give an air of serenity. The accents of leafy greenery, in a sense, were indoor scenery. Thus, morale he endeavored to build. The plants made the workers' hearts chlorophylled. Ha! W.E. Barrows, the daddy of them all. W.E. Barrows, the daddy of the mill. He was the man that could manage. He was the man with the planage. Wanted to make the mill the best. Put the workers to the test. At Thread Mill, he's the head. He makes bread when the mill makes thread. If he can't do it, no one can. W.E. Barrows, the manager man. W.E. Barrows, the daddy of them all. W.E. Barrows, the daddy of the mill. Yes, sir. He'll get that mill on its feet. The machines ain't gonna skip a beat. Everything at that factory is going to be satisfactory.
Windham Frog Wars.
Ribbit. It was in the year 1774 when came to pass the Great Frog War. Well, perhaps great is not the word. You'll understand when my story is heard. Windham Center was the location in the eastern part of a new nation. Colonists had flown from Britain's nest, but ties remained, there was some unrest. Colonial folks had settled towns, but there were still native people around. Sometimes they didn't get along, though in their hearts they knew it was wrong. It wasn't exactly the wild frontier, but the chance of a raid was a real fear. It was a very hot night in June. Dark clouds covered the moon. A horrible noise arose at midnight, which filled the town folk with fright. Families were in their beds, a-lazing, and awoke to a noise amazing. Did it come from one place or all around? It was hard to describe the terrible sound. Yelps, bleats, toots, and growls, grunts, screeches, toots, and howls. Racket, rumble, bellows, and bang. Cackles, snarls, crescendos, and clangs. Caterwaul that came through the night so black. Could be yells signifying Indian attack. Pious folk knelt to pray, assuming the advent of Judgment Day. Was it wolves, coyotes, bears, or goats? Was it Indians, devils, or redcoats? Vision impaired by night black as jet. People were scared, in cellars they hid. They hardly dared to close an eyelid. Frightened, they feared they might wake up dead. Some loaded rifles and shot into the mist, not knowing the targets or if they had missed. When morning came, all was still. They climbed upon Mullen Hill. Aghast agape, they looked beyond. The answer lay in the dried-up mill pond. Lack of rain made the pond so dry. Lack of water meant the frogs may die. It had been a long time since it had rained. Frogs fought each other for water that remained. Yes, it just was bullfrogs made the fracas. Each man was embarrassed and felt like a jackass. Frogs made a fool of you, others joked. The frogs croaked and they croaked before they croaked. This legend bizarre has gone down in folklore. It's come to be known as the Windham Frog War.
MillMade Serenade.
Modern life needed more and more goods, and they weren't made in the woods, but in the towns where the rivers ran. Gone are the days when life was homespun. Some country folk left their farms for Hartford town to make firearms or buckles of brass in Waterbury, or apple cider in Glastonbury, or objects of tin in Berlin. It was a new era of manufacturing. Stanford is where Yale made the locks. From Bristol factories came the clocks. Ivory combs were made in Ivoryton. Hitchcock chairs were made in Riverton. Thornton made kettles and brass tacks. In Collinsville they made an axe. In Berlin they made a cookie tin. In Hartford, they made this gun, bang bang. In Rockville, they made wool to spin. In East Hampton, they made this bell, clang clang. Flexible corsets were made in Bridgeport. New Britain made hardware of every sort. In Manchester the Cheneys produced silk. New Britain made hardware of every ilk. Lord's Mill in Rockville made cashmere wool. East Hampton was the place where they cast the bell. Griswold Slater Mill made cotton thread. Gurleyville Grist Mill made flour for bread. Plainfield and Killingly were known for cotton. Iron forges in Sharon are all but forgotten. No matter what products were made in the mills, workers were needed, and they came from the hills. Modern life needed more and more goods, and they weren't made in the woods, but in the towns where the rivers ran. Gone are the days when life was homespun. There's lots of things to manufacture for business and pleasure, and that's a fact, sir. Factories made everything under the sun. Our country ways were all but done.
Trains.
All aboard! Mind your bustle! Trains were big in 1849. You had your choice of the railroad line. From Hartford to Willie, or Providence out east, or from New London and north before it ceased. The railroad connected people and places, and brought goods like machinery and shoelaces. Josephine pushed to get the railroads in, to transport supplies, thread and linen. Trains brought lumber, machinery, and cheese, brought Cousin Ezra to visit Aunt Louise. Trains were good for business and such, and quarrying around Bolton Notch. The New York and New England train was white. They called it the ghost train, but don't get a fright. With lots of gold decorations on top of her, it looked so fancy, like going to the opera. The trains were the way to go, that is, before they went. No more will the whistle blow on that travel mode on which we did depend. Trains used to go when they went, now they don't go anymore. Now they're in the junkyard, their time is spent. It's hard to find one that we can ride upon. Let me tell you about the railroad car. That is what your grandfather rode. Now we prefer to use another mode, riding cars and trucks down the road. Back then, the passing of the trains was very common for everybody to see. But now the passing of the trains means they are history. There goes another one.
Charles Barrows, inventor.
Charles Barrows was an inventor, but don't misunderstand. He's not W.E. Barrows, the mill manager man, to put forth new ideas. He was not afraid. The world was quite surprised at all the things he made. When his mind's eye saw a need, he wondered, how can I fill it? His diligence was great indeed. He'd work till he'd complete it. And by the way, did I mention the electric tricycle was his invention? Yes, it was. He was an innovative engineer, directing car power to the front wheels, not the rear. It had a storage battery under the seat and went 20 miles an hour down the street. It went 100 miles before the power went away. The front could be detached and hitched to a sleigh. It could run on electricity, gas, or battery cells. A pulley and gear system made it good for hills. His horseless carriage was called the Barrows Mobile, and at $400 it was a steal. Invented the battery-powered railway car and double truck trolley car that held 60 or more. His elevated trolley reduced drag and friction. For more efficiency, was his conviction. But he was not just concerned with transportation. Some inventions addressed recreation. Yes, they did. For instance, his steam revolving swing at resorts was popular and inspired the Ferris wheel at the World's Fair. A mustache protector is an item he'd supply for mugs and cups to keep your mustache dry.
A bright idea.
the story of the mills commenced, it was on a darkened stage. The American audience was entranced by the entrance of the electric age. Once there was a man named A.C. Dunham. He worked at the mills and he helped run 'em. About Edison's bulbs he was excited. The board of directors was delighted. It was a bright idea. It was the right idea. Now people could see all right at night. Good for the factory, good for the family. The future looked quite bright. It's amazing what a little light can do. Yeah, thanks to Edison, that bulbous pioneer who thought of filaments of carbonized bamboo. Ha, that was quite a bright idea. I wish I'd thought of that. Bet Edison's mom was right proud. Attaboy, Tommy! Now go clean your room! Filaments all over the floor. What a boy. Sheesh. That meant the mills could work both day and night, and profits could soar out of sight. 2 shifts meant production could be double, and profits could be double as well. The first mill with electric lights in the nation. Press and politicians saw a demonstration. Dunham saw the new electric arc light bring the light of day to the dark of night. It was a bright idea. It was the right idea. Now people could see all right at night. Good for the factory, good for the family. The future looked quite bright.
Teddy toured the town.
There was a great announcement in the Chronicle one day. It was read in the year of 1902, by the way. The President of our great land was coming here from Washington. Teddy Roosevelt, he's the man, maestro, strike up the band. Everyone in Willimantic came out on Main Street to see him. Flags were hung on every lamp-post. Sign said, "Welcome, Ted." Teddy toured Willimantic. Teddy toured Willimantic. The streets were lined up and down to see the great man in Willimantic. Men and women, children all, would see the little man with his hat so tall. When Teddy toured Willimantic, everybody cheered. Hooray! Hooray! Teddy! Hey! Teddy! All right! Yeah! My man! Teddy! Hey! Everybody was elated, all Main Street was decorated. People chatted while they waited for the man of the hour. Things were frantic in Willimantic. Pushcart vendors parked on Main Street. Restless children got treats to eat when Roosevelt came to town. Teddy toured Willimantic. Teddy toured Willimantic. The streets were lined up and down. See the great man in Willimantic. Rode a horse in his cowboy life. Now rides in the carriage with the mayor and his wife. When Teddy toured Willimantic, everybody cheered. Hooray for Teddy! Yeah, all right, Teddy! Oh, my hero! Yeah, Teddy, my man! Great TED Talk, Teddy.
Kelly.
I'll tell of a man named Kelly. He was a hell of a man. He lived in a town known as Willie, but he came from a town in Ireland. He was for each cause that was worthwhile. He loved Windham like the Emerald Isle. That Kelly came to Willie, his grand. There was a son of Ireland in these parts. He could make things happen in politics and sport. A more officious man. You've never seen a cog in the city's political machine. To represent the town, he was assigned a more civic-minded man you couldn't find. He was on the school board, a model citizen, a member of the ancient order of Hibernians. He came from Ireland as an orphan kid, but it's fantastic, all the things he did. He worked as a clerk in a grocery store, studied law, and he wanted more. Was a Windham lawyer named William King, who took the eager lad under his wing. He met Helen Murray, asked her to tie the knot. They had 10 children, believe it or not. From grocery clerk to clerk at town hall, at the Elks, exalted ruler of them all, accomplished in calligraphy and art, he took Willimantic's issues to heart. He thought the footbridge should have a trolley, and that it only hold walkers was folly. He was a proponent of the great town hall, lobbied for the building of a high school as well. Kelly was passionate about baseball. To build the best teams was his goal. Local pro ball teams he administrated. Willimantic Coats was highly celebrated. He was active till his death in 1927. Then he managed angel teams up in heaven. I'll tell of a man named Kelly. He was a hell of a man. He lived in a town known as Willie, but he came from a town in Ireland. He was for each cause that was worthwhile. He loved Windham like the Emerald Isle. That Kelly came to Willie is grand.
MillMade.
In the Industrial Revolution, Willimantic was a mill town. Mill wheels turned in revolution. Perhaps we should call it Will Town. Willimantic of Odeo. MillMade is more apropos. For water-powered mills, it is famed. It should be named MillMade. Thread City and Cotton Town are names that folks may use for whether it jams as the river flows down. It doesn't matter what term you choose. Willimantic's a great damn town. Willimantic came from an Indian word meaning place of swift running waters. A boon for boaters, but also good for textile industry promoters. From the hills, rivers came tumbling through. Dams made water power viable. The people from the mountains came down too. The attraction was undeniable. The early operations were just small, making lumber or pulp for paper. Flour was processed in a grist mill, and for soldiers they made gunpowder. as the mill wheels turned around. Industry turned around too, as cotton to thread were tightly wound. The textile industry grew. Willimantic Linen Company became American Thread, largest textile mill in the country, and the best, or so it's said. In the Industrial Revolution, Willimantic was a mill town. Mill wheels turned in revolution. Perhaps we should call it Willtown. Willimantic of Oleo-Do. Willimantic is more apropos. For water-powered mills, it is famed. It should be named Willimantic. Willimantic.
Willie for me.
Willie is a special place in northeastern Connecticut. Haven't found another place that I like better yet. France has its Paris, Germany, Berlin. Brazil has Buenos Aires, but I love the place I'm in. California has Frisco and also Hollywood. Nevada has Reno, but Willie's just as good. Maine is Orchard Beach, New York is NYC. There's benefits to each, but it's Willie for me. There's not a place that can replace Willimantic, that's Willie for me. Just hear me praise those Willie ways, that's where I stays to live out my days. Keep your Palisades and your Everglades, don't need travel logs, I'll stay with the frogs. Ribbit, Turkey has Istanbul, Missouri, St. Louis, Washington, Seattle, then there's Kalamazoo. Massachusetts has Boston, where they bake the beans. Texas has Houston, Louisiana, New Orleans. There's Rome in Italy. Japan has Tokyo. Australia has Sydney. But I don't want to go. There's not a place that can replace Willimantic, that's Willie for me.
Josephine Harmon.
Josephine Harmon was a star. Her comic songs were the rage when vaudeville was king. Just like Sophie Tucker, she lit up the Broadway stage till she gave up singing. Philip Lautier captured her heart and brought down the curtain on her theater career. She bowed, waved her handkerchief, and left for Willimantic to live out her life. Her hobbies, company, electromotive made parts for radios. He passed away, leaving Joe in charge of the whole company. And then she married Jesse Greer, and Jesse moved here. Together they made music, Josephine and Jesse Greer came from Tin Pan Alley to live in Willie.
Jesse Greer.
What about Jesse Greer and his career? Jesse wrote Kansas City, the tune endearing, the one you're hearing. by Jesse Greer, that Broadway balladeer. He made the Broadway lights shine so much brighter. He earned praise, one snappy songwriter. It made a big hit for Rudy Valley. When Rudy found it, sitting there in Tin Pan Alley, wrote show tunes for his livelihood. Then he wrote films out in Hollywood. Wrote 200 songs, including Flapperette. Jesse Greer had hit after hit. He's Jesse, he wrote Kitty, a pretty ditty. Jesse Greer, I wish he was here.
Windham Textile and History Museum.
The Windham Textile and History Museum has fine exhibits. You should see 'em. As you enter, the gift shop is seen, with new items with a historic theme. Books and games, aprons to see, prints and soaps and Dougal CD. Exhibits on the first floor are rotating, bound to be fun and educating. Enter the section known as Thread Mill Square. See the workers' homes and what they did there. See the kitchen table set for meals. Read the mill's list of tenement rules. See utensils hanging on the wall. A cast iron stove that burned coal. This is where they cooked food after work for a hungry brood. The stove was good for warming toes. Water was boiled to wash clothes, which was done in a metal tub. And iron was heated on a stove top. 2 iron garments on an ironing board. A metal kettle from which coffee poured. A mill office with a desk and a chair. Beds with mattresses of horsehair. A chamber pot was supplied for when they didn't want to go outside. A talking machine made by Victor, man with a mustache in a picture. An antique mirror and a comb. There was an organ in the manager's home. A crank telephone that looked like a box. A carpet beater for cleaning rugs. Metal stretchers for stretching socks. The 3rd floor library's full of books. Dugan Mill's next door where there's more. See machines and learn what they're for. A spinning frame where fibers were spun. Reels were measuring, thread was done. The carding machine where cotton was cleaned and turned to thread in a spinning machine. Calipers for measuring and a tool chest, block and tackle and a printing press, a jacquard loom for textile weaving, see the steam whistle before leaving. Woo-woo! Woo-woo!
Willimantic Willies.
Come and take a walk with me in an ancient cemetery. You may ask me, is it scary? I'll lie and say, not very. Ha ha ha. No. In Willimantic, these folks were buried. Try hard not to be ill at ease. You'll be fine if you are wary, and you will not get the willies. Willimantic Willies, Willimantic Willies, whoa! They'll get ya, yeah, they'll really get ya. The Willimantic Willies, Willimantic Willies, whoa! They will chill you through. See the headstones that we walk through. See the inscriptions. Let's read a few. Eliphalet Dyer at 96 croaked. He was mentioned in the Frog Wars joke. Oh, By an empty grave a cat did grin. It seemed to say, please drop in. Yeah, right. Ebenezer Gray was an old doctor. He had 9 kids, he won't have more. I saw a goblin that looked real weird. I could see even he was scared. Help! The Willimantic Willies, Willimantic Willies. Whoa, pretty scary, kids. Whoa, those Willies, they'll get ya, yeah. The Willimantic Willies, Willimantic Willies, Willimantic Willies. Whoa, they'll chill you through. Joshua Ripley and his brother kicked the bucket. Ezekiel drowned trying to cross the Shetucket. I saw a ghost of a man named Jim. He tried to look brave, but I saw through him. It was pretty clear when I saw right through him. I could tell he was a ghost all right. I saw a skull and it looked real creepy. I looked again and it winked at me. Windham's town fathers are marked by these stones, while underneath there are rattling bones. Willimantic Willies, Willimantic Willies, whoa! Willimantic Willies, they'll get you! The Willimantic Willies, Willimantic Willies, whoa! They'll chill you through! I hate it when that happens.
Water power.
Water power, water power, water power, yeah. Water rushing, water gushing, water rushing. Water power is not evil. Fire power comes from the devil. But water power is not evil. Thunderbolt crashing, feel the power smashing, feel the water rushing. After the Civil War, industry grew more and more. Water answered the call with a quick moving waterfall. Moving the wheels of industry with a righteous rapidity. People knew what H2O stood for, but now they knew what water power was good for. Water comes down to do good for man. It's all part of his almighty plan. God of water, Poseidon by name, and by his order the waters came. Fluid energy came down by river from Poseidon, the water giver. It was harnessed and put to the test. Of all the powers, water's the best. What a power, what a power.